Today I thought I'd show you how to put a dado set into your table saw. It's a fairly straightforward process, but maybe you don't know how to range the blades and which way they should face, or even how to get them snugged up tight. You use a dado set if you want to cut a nice flat bottomed groove like you do here. Make several passes and you can get it tuned in just right. You can also dial the width in to exactly the right width and make one pass if it's thin enough. So let's get started. The first thing to do is to get the old regular blade out of the saw. To do that, I remove the insert, and then I use the wrenches that came with my saw. I'm going to start by putting one wrench on the flats of the arbor here. I'm going to use the other wrench here. And if you notice that the threads are actually backwards from normal threads, and so I'm going to actually rotate the opposite direction you'd expect. That's because as the blade tries to turn, this will resist its movement and it'll actually tighten up. So to loosen it, you actually spin it in the same direction as the blade would normally spin. So now that I've loosened it, I can just loosen it up. One trick I learned somewhere is to stick your finger right on the end here and spin the nut right onto your finger. That way, you're not likely to drop the nut down into the bottom of your saw and have to go scrounging around to try to find the darn thing. I'll do the same thing with the little stabilizer. And now I can remove the original blade. Now to install the dado set, you start with one of the outer blades. Now usually one side is labeled this side out, as this one is here. You can see it says this side out. Makes it fairly straightforward. But if it doesn't, you usually would probably want to set probably the labeling is going to be on the outside. Either way, you want the teeth to turn in the correct direction. So this has to face this way, so obviously I don't put that one on first. So I'll put the other blade on first. Just slide that on. And then you just add a whole series of these chippers to get to the width that you want. This set comes with 3 or 4 full-size chippers, 2 outer blades, and then a couple of odd sizes to dial in the size that you actually need. These chippers only have 4 teeth apiece. Sometimes they have 2. But what you want to do is you want to slide them in and go ahead and put them between the teeth. They actually overlap a little bit to give you some room to put shims in place. So I'll go ahead and put those in. I'll put this one up. I'll try to balance them out a little bit. So this one here, this one's about 90 degrees from there. Put another one in. In this case I want a full width dado, so I'm going to put all of the 1/8 inch thick chippers in place. So I'll put that one about there. Put one more in place here, about 90 degrees from that. So if you'll see, I have them about every 22 degrees around. I put the first 2 at 90 degrees to each other, and then I put the next 2 offset from them, 90 degrees to each other, so that they're sort of evenly spaced around. I don't want them just all bunched up. Finally, I'll put the outer blade on here. Make sure that when you use a dado set, you always use the 2 outer blades. You never use it with just one blade and a bunch of chippers. You always have to have the 2 outer blades. You might have just the 2 outer blades, in which case you'd want to offset their teeth from each other. So that means you're always going to have a dado at least about 1/4 inch thick, which is the width of the 2 blades put together. Now, if you're trying to make a cut in one pass, a lot of times your sets can come with these little shims in various thicknesses. And what you do is you just put those on between the blades to help adjust the width just a little bit, and you would stack them at various points throughout as you're putting this to the arbor. If your set doesn't have one of these, you could probably cut this from, I don't know, just some thin pieces of plastic. You might be even able to use just some regular paper to get them to this right space. But once you have them in place, if you have enough room on your arbor to put the support or the blade support back in, fine. But if you're doing a full width like mine is, there's not going to be enough room, so I'm just going to use the nut, and that's fine. So again, I'm going to use my same trick. I'm going to put it on my finger, stick my finger onto the arbor, and then spin the nut on. And I'm going to spin it away from me. Now if you have a left tilt saw, then the nut will spin in the direction you expect. But on a standard right tilt saw, now again, I'm going to tighten it, snug it up. And I'm going to get it reasonably tight, but you don't want to over tighten it. When the saw spins up, it'll actually tighten the blade on its own, as I mentioned. That's it. Now that we have the dado set assembled onto the saw and snugged up, we're ready to raise the blade and set the height. All we have to do is put our insert. I made this one out of an old cutting board. Drop that into place and we're ready to go.